We knew when we were getting a Jeanneau, an EU-made boat, that we'd be wrestling sometimes with metric and imperial measurements. But today we're going to be doing something a little more shocking. And that's going to be converting our 32 amp EU standard receptacles to 30 amp US standard receptacles on our boat. I'm Dave, a former 100-ton US Coast Guard license holder and owner of a Jeanneau 1095. Our goal on Echo Zulu Cruising is to show people how to enjoy their boat, work on their boat, and have fun on their boat. Come along as we try and fix a problem on our 1095 so we can get out and enjoy the water. This is the way I'm doing it, which is the slow, figure it out as you go. Someone watching this is going to instantly have a better way to do it. Put it in the comments to save someone else time. So the power receptacles on the Jeanneau when they're delivered, the receptacle on the boat with the male adapters is a 32 amp EU standard plug. Comes with a shore power cord that has 32 amp female on one end and male 30 amp US standard on the other. Unfortunately, in the last storm that came through, we had a power source that's melted our AC cable into the receptacle. So it doesn't work. We came across this problem in one of our normal boat checks. We had the AC on, we were turning off the power, we shut it off at the shore, shut it off down below, it was running. We came to pull it out and the shore power to the batteries came out no problem. Standard. The AC would turn but not come out. It felt like it was stuck. After struggling with it for a bit, I went back down below. We turned on the power, and on the AC, that receptacle was saying it was reverse polarity, meaning one of the prongs probably broke off inside. I looked at replacing this with the original Jeanneau 32 amp receptacle. One, that 32 amp is more expensive, and two, it would take 6 to 8 weeks to receive it. I plan to replace both receptacles so that I don't have to worry about which cable's which, because they will both have a different female adapter into the boat, so I just want to keep them the same. Before you make any changes on your boat, you want to make sure you know the power and the electricity source, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable making the change and willing to make a mistake. Showing you what we've done on our boat doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you, and my plan is to do both, but if I run into problems, it may take longer. Stick around as we go through the process of troubleshooting and replacing our EU 32 amp receptacles with a US standard 30 amp receptacle. Why are we replacing this? It's really for ease of service in the future. The 32 amp receptacle that comes on the Jeanneau boats, that is a European standard, requires a special shore power cable. That cable can cost anywhere from $190 to $230 plus shipping. It can also take 8 weeks or more when you order it. We've spoken with several Jeanneau owners who've had to replace their power cord for one reason or another, and there was that time lag. Second, the receptacle for a replacement costs about $170 to $190, and it has that same time lag. So you're talking about 8 weeks, and combined roughly $400 to replace the shore power cable and the receptacle. The US standard receptacle, 30 amp, is about $110 at West Marine. You can see a link down below to the supplies that we got on our conversion. The shore power cable is about $130, $140. So it's about $240, $250 to replace it with the US standard. We can pick them right up at West Marine. So the time and the cost is our reason for the conversion. First step, we've shut off the power down below. So shore power is off. We've shut off power on the dock. We shut off our batteries. So all the power's off on board the boat. We've unplugged the cable from the shore power. You don't want to mess with electricity. I'm always terrified of it. The problem we had was not on our house batteries. This plug comes out fine. You can see there's a little scoring on this. So there was, in that power surge, there's a little scoring melting. That's what we assume happened on the other plug, but to a greater extent. That's kind of where the hypothesis of what's happened occurred. But we see some of that damage on here. That's part of the reason for replacing both plugs, is that we know there's some damage to this. We'll keep this cord as a spare and this receptacle as a spare, but recognize there's some damage on it, so we want to replace it so that we have the most reliable equipment on board for when we're on trips. The AC cord, however, we turn it, still turns, that quarter turn, but doesn't come out. I've pulled on it a bit, and I worry if I yank it, I just fall into the water, but it's stuck in place. Again, with that scoring, we think that is melted. There's 4 screws on this housing, so we're gonna pull those out and pull this one off first. Just forward of the receptacles, there's watertight cabin where you can get into the back end if you need it. It's sealed up. There's some cables that are kind of sealed up there, but if you need to get in the back end, you can reach on both sides of this to get that done. So removing 4 screws, praying we don't drop them in the water. So it's unscrewed, not popping off. I assume there's some kind of ring on the back, so we'll check that out and figure out how to remove it, but it's unscrewed. There is some 5200 on the screws to hold them in place, but we need to now remove this, so we'll check out how to get that done. As with every boat project, we've run into a slight challenge to overcome. There's these air vents that are blocking the back of the power outlets. This does not just pull off, so that I believe there's a tension knob on the back that I'm gonna have to remove, but I can't get in there with the seat here, so I'm gonna have to lower the engines, move the seat all the way back. So lesson if you're doing this, start with your engines down and the bench all the way back so you can get full access to this panel and come in from that side. I can't open this enough with the seats forward, so I have to pull it back and come in and remove the air vent, which is zip tied in place, pull it out of the way so I can access the back of the receptacle.
This is a prime example of troubleshooting a problem for the first time. Part of the reason we share our mistakes is to save you time later. Showing what we did wrong in a condensed version allows you to do it right quicker.
We spent a few hours researching the best way to remove this receptacle. I moved the seats, I looked down below, moved an air hose so I could get right behind it, and you can see there's nothing that's actually holding it in place. It's unscrewed, so the only thing that is holding the receptacle in place is whatever marine adhesive was used to install it. We've got it loosened, we've got the screws off. The only thing to do now is separate the adhesive from the receptacle, pry it out to change the wires. We're going to use a putty knife and start at 12 o'clock at the top and go around the edge, hopefully separating that without doing damage to the fiberglass around the edge of the receptacle. You can see where we've removed the power cable inside. In fact, it is all melted, so the supposition that we had this melted is accurate. We're gonna remove this and replace it so that we have the US standard receptacle 30 amp on board. We're gonna use the putty knife and a hammer and hopefully go around starting at 12 degrees or at 12 o'clock, try and get this off. And it's on like a mo. All right, got a little bit there. Remove your bits from your, getting a little movement around the side here. Don't want to go down the middle because there's wires there. Separating along the edge. All right, so we have the whole receptacle removed. I just need to figure out how to untie it. Got a good seal on there. So on the replacement, the housing goes over the edge. This is, wires go straight in the end. Here on the original, you gotta figure out how to remove this housing without falling in the water. We got some corrosion on this. So we have it off. We've removed the 5200 that was sealing it, or the sealant that was sealing it. We have the receptacle that we need to remove. There's a small screwdriver that I had to pick up from the house because I didn't have one this small on board to remove one screw that holds a ground. Hopefully this twists off. Now, I have figured out why I can't remove this. On the burnt out plug, the retaining screws are behind this plug that's melted. So I need to figure out how to remove this piece to get to the retaining screws or cut off the wire. It's really nice, simple, good design, but if you have a plug that's melted into the receptacle, pretty hard to remove. It's getting to almost be a comedy of errors. I've gone back to the house about 4 times to pick up different tools, not knowing what I'd need next. So I picked up a smaller screwdriver. I picked up a putty knife to remove the back. Smaller screwdriver was to remove a small lead on a smaller screw. And now I've gone to get a small chisel so that I can break apart the plastic to remove the plastic housing. If that doesn't work, I have my drill. So I picked up the drill at the same time. So we need to remove this plastic on the outside to be able to get to the recessed screws to remove this back housing. There's one prong from the plug that's has the melted plastic. So I'm trying to break apart the plastic to get it space to turn. Plastic is very brittle because it is melted. Been trying to do this without dropping anything in the water. Chisel didn't do it. So we're moving on to the drill. We're just trying to drill out enough of the plastic around the melted piece to get it past the angled teeth. It's all melted on the inside, so I can't pull it out, and there's no good grip to get in. So I'm gonna just keep drilling around, hopefully to drill out enough plastic to move it so I can release it. It has these seating screws in the face of the plug on the existing receptacle, so you need to remove that, of course. This is the way I'm doing it, which is the slow, figure it out as you go. Someone watching this is going to instantly have a better way to do it. Put it in the comments to save someone else time. Oh, yes! Victory! See, it's all melted, had to break it apart. It was filled with plastic from when it melted. It's a high point of my day right there. I was able to finally get it pulled out enough where it was melted through, clearly seared. And now I can reach the screws that are on the face to remove the whole plug. We're not even gonna try and save this one. This has got some electric problems. We're just gonna replace it. So the screws on the facing unscrew pretty easily once you remove the melted plug. You can feel the whole housing moving. The first plug probably takes 4 hours figuring it out. The second one, I'll have all the tools here. I don't have to remove a damaged one. Hopefully that one's quick. Housing's removed. I've got the 3 plugs here that I'm just gonna remove. Just plugs on the edge, just each one's screwed in place. Just need to unplug it. These are each a flathead screw on this housing. Oh, these are nicely crimped. I don't think I have to do anything to reinsert them. We've got scoring on 2 of these. The ground is fine, but the other 2 clearly have some damage. I'm going to trim those back to try and clean it up. I don't have a lot of extra here to work with, so we'll just trim it back a little bit and install the new one. Unlike the other housing where the wires came in the back, this housing they come in the side. So I am going to reposition these and try and get this on the side. So we have this off. We are now getting ready to install the new receptacle. And the key point of this is keeping track of your wiring. The brown wire would be your load wire or your black wire. The blue wire would be your neutral or white wire, and the green is ground. So brown is black, blue is white, and green is green. So we want to keep that straight for your wire. The Jeanneau is a 1095. I don't know, this is I guess it's a European color coding, but brown is load, equivalent to black. Blue is white, that's your neutral. Green is ground. I'm going to come through the bottom because that's the angle that this wire is coming from. So we want it going down into this housing. We've got the new Marine Co. 30 amp, 125 volt. We've got green, black, and white. So we've fed the wires into the back of the housing. This connects with a wire, this connects to the back here. Brown goes with the black, blue goes with the white, green with the green. So brown with the black, blue with the white, green with the green. So we'll feed it through and connect the wires. There's barely space to do this. Something we should have done before. Down below where the electrical system is, it's cleaned up, it's all zip tied in place. I cut some of the zip tied so I have this extra line to come out. Makes the wire easier to work with. I was worried about how little was coming out. There was plenty after I loosened that and pulled it out. So it's nice to have this to work with. I'm gonna set this up and install it back up. This was one of my aha moments is realizing that I could just do that. Cover is a little bit of a pain with this housing on it. I guess I could cut it back. So I'm gonna cut this black insulation about a 1/2 inch to give myself some more wire to work with, and then I have this covering to cover it. So I'm gonna cut this back about a 1/2 inch, just so that there's more to work with, and then I can still have this to seal it up. Jesus Christ. As you almost drop stuff in the water. So I've cut this piece off, didn't score the wire at all. So just giving a little more wire to work with, make it easier on myself. I was trying to just work with the small nubs that were sticking out, and there was no need to do that. All right, this housing. So now the housing can slide. I'm gonna do two things here. One, there's a clamp that holds the wires in place. Two, unlike the one we're replacing, you remove the fittings from the back, not the front. It's been a long process to get this pulled out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just finish this AC one today, wrap this up. We're gonna do a second video where I just cleanly replace the other one. But today, I'm just gonna finish this up. With this one, we're going to put a silicone, just a dab of silicone around the gasket to help it seal so we don't have to crank down too much. So we've got the silicone. We'll just do a bead right around the gasket just to help it seal. Don't want too much, don't want to make a mess. I don't want to have to crank down too hard on the screws into the fiberglass and to have a good seal. And I didn't want to use 5200 or we'd never get it undone. Little bead also help hold the place for the holes. And then we'll do another little bead on this side. It's just regular silicone sealant from West Marine. As you said, all of the parts, the Marine Co. receptacle and the Marine Co. cord, those are all from West Marine. The parts are in the description. And my 4 original screws, I'm just gonna reuse. Let's get them started. This first one in. It's a reading glasses type of operation. Second screw in slightly. Tighten these down, but not cranked too crazy for the fiberglass. Here, you can see the 32 amp has a much larger shape, different plug alignment than in the 30 amp. So I need to make sure I have the new plug and the old plug set up. So we're gonna test to see if our AC is working. We've got this installed. This is a 30 amp. We still have the 32 amp to the house power. We're gonna leave this for now, but just make sure this one's working. Stick around when we check out to make sure that this actually works by connecting our shore power with the new shore power cable to our air conditioning. You're gonna connect the new US standard 30 amp cord, run it for the AC, and see how the power runs to make sure we've got this wired correctly. I'm gonna hook up our old shore power for the house batteries. I haven't changed that receptacle. I'm gonna use this new one to make sure it works. Next video will be replacing quickly and efficiently the other shore power receptacle. Nice new cable, makes me wanna clean our old ones. Nice and snug. We'll run it up to the power and see how it hooks up, turns on the AC. Moment of truth. We're turning on the shore power. Hopefully we have the 120. We aren't showing a fault. The shore power light is red and the reverse polarity light is not lit up. So that's an improvement for where we've been. So let's turn on, see if we get our 120. We've successfully replaced the 32 amp receptacle on our AC with a 30 amp US standard. This allows us to use US standard parts and replace them easier. There's several real lessons that we've learned from this. Number one, the receptacle has face screws to replace them. So you have to have the receptacle totally clear to be able to replace the existing one on a Jeanneau boat. Number two, you want to loosen any of the cords that are under the deck so you have more line to work with. I struggled with some short line and all I had to do was cut off some of the zip ties that were holding things in place so I had more wire to work with. Once we're done replacing the second receptacle, we'll tighten that all back up. But that gave a lot more wire to work with and being able to pull it out of the hole through the plate. Number three, you remove the receptacle with a putty knife. That putty knife is used to remove the sealant that it's held in place with. Number 4, you need more tools than I originally planned. The basic tools you're going to need for this project are a Phillips head screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, wire cutters, and you're also going to need a putty nut. I cut some of the zip ties that are holding a vent in place. That's not necessary to do because there's nothing behind the receptacle that's holding it in place. It's only in front. You just need the faceplate to remove it. To learn more about how you can maximize the use of a Jeanneau in the US, kind of making conversions onto the EU standard, the railings and some of the windshield wipers. Check it out and you can learn what we've done, and we're going to keep giving more content. If you got any questions about a 1095, put them in the comments. We'll try and answer them. Until next time, have fun, be safe, be happy.